Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the inn's horizon, watching the stars drift past the view screen. His ship was 3 days out from Earth, heading toward the Outer Rim colonies to deliver supplies and check on the mining stations. It was routine work, the kind that let him think about his wife back home and the fishing trip he planned when he returned. The communication console beeped. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her station with a frown. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal." Jake straightened in his chair. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was filled with static and fear. "This is Kepler Station calling any human vessel. We are under attack." "Repeat, we are under attack by alien ships. They are demanding we leave immediately or they will destroy us. We have 847 people here, including children. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt his blood run cold. Kepler Station was a mining colony built on a large asteroid in the Vega system. Good people lived there, families who had left Earth to build something new among the stars. They had children who played in the station's gardens and went to school in converted cargo bays. "How far are we from Kepler Station?" Jake asked. Rodriguez checked her instruments. 6 hours at full speed, sir. Take us there. Maximum thrust." The Horizon's engines roared to life, pushing the crew back into their seats. Jake activated the ship's communication system and sent a message to Kepler Station. "This is Captain Morrison of the UN's Horizon. We received your distress call. We are coming to help." "Hold on." During the 6-hour journey, Jake learned more about the situation. The aliens attacking Kepler Station called themselves the Veltar Confederation. They were a military alliance of several species who believed in expanding their territory through force. They claimed that humans had no right to mine in the asteroid field around Kepler Station, even though the humans had bought legal mining rights from the Galactic Trade Commission 3 years ago. When the Horizon arrived at the edge of the Kepler system, Jake saw the problem immediately. 12 large alien warships surrounded the small mining station. Each ship was twice the size of the Horizon and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The station itself looked tiny and helpless next to the massive alien vessels. "Open a channel to the lead alien ship," Jake ordered. A reptilian face appeared on the view screen. The creature had yellow eyes and sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was deep and threatening. "I am General Zektar of the Veltar Confederation. You will turn around and leave this system immediately. We are claiming this territory for our people." Jake stood up from his chair. "General, I am Captain Morrison of the United Nations Space Navy. This system belongs to the humans who live and work here. They have legal rights to be here." The alien general made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your legal papers mean nothing to us. We take what we want. Your people have 1 hour to leave the station and go back where they came from. If they refuse, we will destroy them. And if I refuse to let you, then you will die with them. Your small ship cannot fight our fleet." Jake looked at his crew. They were all young people, volunteers who had joined the Space Navy to explore the galaxy and help human colonies. None of them had signed up to fight a war against overwhelming odds, but he could see in their eyes that they were ready to try. "I need to make a call," Jake said. He walked to the communication station and opened a channel on the emergency frequency that all human ships monitored. This was the frequency used when humans were in real danger, when lives were at stake. Every human ship in space listened to this channel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UN's Horizon, calling all human vessels. We have a situation at Kepler Station in the Vega system. 847 of our people are surrounded by hostile alien ships. They have 1 hour before the aliens attack. The aliens have 12 warships. We have 1 ship. We need help." Jake paused, thinking of the right words. "I know some of you are cargo ships. Some of you are passenger vessels. Some of you are just trying to get home to your families. But our people are in danger. They have children on that station. They need us." He gave the coordinates for Kepler Station and closed the channel. Then he turned to his crew. "Now we wait and see who comes." Commander Lisa Hayes was in the control center of Kepler Station when the human ship arrived. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had helped build the station from nothing. She had watched families arrive to start new lives, seen children born in the station's medical bay, and helped people through the hard times that came with life on the frontier. The human ship was talking to the aliens. Her assistant reported. Lisa watched the view screen as the alien general threatened the human captain. She knew the captain was brave to come here, but one ship could not save them. The aliens had enough firepower to turn the station into dust in minutes. "Send a message to all sections," Lisa ordered. "Tell everyone to prepare for evacuation, but also tell them to prepare to fight if we have to." She looked out at the stars beyond the alien ships. Somewhere out there, other human vessels were listening to the captain's call for help. She wondered if any of them would come. She wondered if any of them would risk their lives for a mining station full of strangers. The aliens had given them 1 hour. In 53 minutes, they would find out if humans really took care of their own. The first ship to answer Jake's call was the merchant vessel Phoenix Dawn. Captain Amy Rodriguez had been hauling medical supplies to the colonies when she heard the distress signal. She changed course immediately, pushing her cargo ship to its limits. Her crew of 6 looked nervous when she told them where they were going, but none of them complained. "We have medicine and emergency equipment," Amy told Jake over the communication link. "Not much in the way of weapons, but we'll do what we can." Within 2 hours, more ships began arriving. The cargo hauler Steel Runner appeared first, followed by the passenger liner New Hope carrying 300 colonists who had been heading to a different system. Captain Paul Carter brought his industrial ship Mountain Mover, loaded with construction equipment and mining tools. Jake watched the growing collection of ships with amazement. These were not warships. They were ordinary vessels crewed by ordinary people who had jobs to do and families to feed. But they had all heard that humans were in danger, and they had come to help. General Zakhtar was also watching the human ships arrive. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the strange collection of vessels gathering near Kepler Station. His tactical officer, a tall alien with blue skin, looked confused. "General, why are they sending civilian ships to a battle zone? Are humans so desperate that they arm their cargo vessels?" Zakhtar examined the readings from his sensors. "These ships carry no heavy weapons. Most of them are not even military vessels. I do not understand their purpose. In the Veltar culture, only trained soldiers fought wars. Civilians stayed away from danger and let the military handle conflicts." The idea that cargo ships and passenger liners would come to help in a battle made no sense to him. "Perhaps it is a trick," suggested his tactical officer. "Maybe they are hiding weapons inside those civilian ships." "Perhaps," Zakhtar replied, but he was not convinced. The human vessels were moving too slowly and clumsily to be disguised warships. They looked exactly like what they claimed to be, ordinary civilian ships. Aboard the Horizon, Jake was coordinating with the growing human fleet. Each ship captain reported their capabilities and asked what they could do to help. The answers surprised him. Captain Helen Santos of the passenger liner New Hope had 300 passengers, but she also had a full medical bay and enough supplies to treat wounded people. "We can turn our dining halls into emergency hospitals," she offered. Paul Carter's industrial ship carried massive construction equipment. "I've got plasma cutters that can slice through metal and heavy lifters that can move cargo containers. Maybe we can use them as weapons." Dr. Karen Miller, a scientist aboard one of the civilian ships, had been studying alien languages and communication systems. "I've been listening to their radio chatter," she told Jake. "The Veltar use a very rigid command structure. If we can disrupt their communications, we might be able to confuse them." Jake realized that while the human fleet lacked military firepower, they had something else: diversity. Each ship brought different skills and equipment. Together, they might be able to create solutions that no single warship could manage. The alien deadline was approaching. General Zakhtar opened a communication channel to all the human ships. His reptilian face appeared on every view screen in the small fleet. "Humans, you now have 30 minutes to evacuate the mining station. Take your civilian ships and leave this system? We do not wish to destroy non-military vessels, but we will if you interfere with our operations. Jake responded for the human fleet. General, we're not leaving. Those people on Kepler Station are our people. We protect our own. Your small fleet cannot defeat our warships. Why do you choose to die for strangers? Jake thought about the question. To the aliens, the people on Kepler Station were just strangers in a distant system, but to the humans, they were family. They shared the same planet of origin, the same hopes for the future, the same determination to build new lives among the stars. They're not strangers, Jake said simply. They're human. The alien general ended the communication with what sounded like frustration. He turned to his tactical officer. Are there any military vessels in the human fleet? Only the small ship that arrived first, General. The others are cargo vessels, passenger ships, and industrial haulers. None of them pose a serious threat to our warships. Zektar studied the tactical display. His fleet had overwhelming firepower. The human ships were outnumbered and outgunned. By all logical analysis, this should be an easy victory. But something about the situation bothered him. Why do they stay? He asked his officer. Any reasonable species would retreat when faced with superior force. Perhaps humans are not reasonable, General. On Kepler Station, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the human ships positioning themselves between the station and the alien fleet. She had lived on the frontier long enough to recognize different types of vessels. These were not warships coming to rescue them. These were ordinary people with ordinary jobs who had risked everything to help. How many ships do we have now? She asked her assistant. 47, Commander. More are still arriving, Lisa smiled grimly. When she had helped establish Kepler Station, she had believed that humans could build something good in the darkness between stars. Now she was seeing proof that humans would also fight to protect what they had built. She opened a channel to the human fleet. This is Commander Hayes of Kepler Station. Thank you for coming. We have children here, families who chose to make their lives in this place. Whatever happens, we won't forget that you came when we needed help. The alien deadline was 10 minutes. Away, the human fleet finished their preparations. They had no heavy weapons, no military tactics, no experience fighting space battles. But they had something the aliens did not understand. The absolute certainty that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the odds. Jake Morrison looked around his bridge at the young faces of his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. In 10 minutes, they would discover what humans were truly capable of when their people were threatened. The first shots came without warning. General Zektar's flagship fired at Kepler Station, its massive energy beam cutting through the station's outer hull. Alarm screamed across the human fleet as Jake Morrison watched the mining station shudder. Under the attack, all ships move to intercept, Jake ordered. Protect the station. The human fleet surged forward, 47 vessels of different sizes and purposes charging toward the alien warships. The Veltar had expected the humans to retreat when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they watched in disbelief as cargo. Ships and passenger liners accelerated directly toward their battle line. Captain Amy Rodriguez pushed her medical supply ship toward the nearest alien cruiser. Her crew had spent the last hour rigging emergency equipment into makeshift weapons. Medical lasers designed for surgery were now aimed at enemy ships. Portable generators were overloaded to create electromagnetic pulses. This is crazy, her engineer muttered as he watched the alien ship grow larger on their view screen. Maybe, Amy replied, but those are our people on that station. The Phoenix Dawn opened fire with its converted medical equipment. The lasers were not powerful enough to damage the alien ship's hull, but they blinded its sensors and targeting systems. The alien cruiser fired back, its weapons powerful enough to destroy Amy's ship in one shot, but the beam went wide as the gunners could not see their target. Paul Carter's industrial ship Mountain Mover approached from a different angle. His crew had turned their construction equipment into weapons of war. Heavy lifting magnets were used to grab and throw chunks of asteroid debris at the alien ships. Plasma cutters designed for mining operations sliced through enemy hull plating. Remember, Paul told his crew over the intercom, "We're not trying to destroy them. We just need to disable their weapons and engines." The mountain movers' plasma cutters found their mark on an alien destroyer. The precise cuts severed the ship's weapon systems, leaving it unable to fight. The alien crew inside were probably still alive, but their ship was no longer a threat. General Zektar watched the battle from his command center with growing confusion. The human ships were not fighting like any military force he had ever encountered. They used unconventional tactics, improvised weapons, and seemed willing to sacrifice themselves for minimal tactical advantage. General, his tactical officer, reported, "3 of our ships have been disabled. The humans are not trying to destroy us. They are targeting our weapons and engines." "Why would they do that?" Zektar demanded. "In war, you destroy your enemies completely." "I do not know, General. Perhaps they follow different rules of warfare." On the passenger liner New Hope, Captain Helen Santos coordinated a complex maneuver with 5 other civilian ships. They had connected their ships with docking tubes and magnetic clamps, creating a larger combined vessel. The New Hope's 300 passengers were now working together to operate weapon systems on all 6 ships. "Fire pattern Delta," Helen ordered. The combined ship formation opened fire with every weapon they could manage. Welding torches, construction lasers, and even modified cooking equipment created a wall of energy that forced 2 alien cruisers to retreat. The humans had no training in space combat, but they had something more valuable: the determination to protect their own. Danny Brooks flew, his maintenance shuttle through the battle like a tiny metal insect. His job was normally to repair equipment and move supplies between ships, but today he was hunting alien fighters. The shuttle was too small and fast for the enemy's heavy weapons to track, and Danny used this advantage to get close to enemy ships. "Coming up on Cruiser 7, Danny reported to Jake. "I can see their sensor array, going to try something stupid." Danny activated his shuttle's welding torch and flew directly at the alien ship's main sensor dome. The torch was designed to cut through metal in space dock repairs, but it worked just as well on alien technology. The sensor array exploded in a shower of sparks, leaving the cruiser blind and helpless. "Target disabled," Danny announced. Moving to the next one. Dr. Karen Miller worked frantically at her computer station aboard the research vessel Discovery. She had been studying Veltar communications for hours, looking for weaknesses in their coordination. Finally, she found what she was looking for. "Jake," she called over the fleet communication channel, "I've figured out their command structure. They use a single frequency for all fleet orders. If we can jam that frequency, their ships won't be able to coordinate with each other." "Can you do it?" "I need 10 minutes and every ship's communication array working together. We can create a feedback loop that will overload their command frequency." Jake looked at the battle raging around them. Human ships were holding their own against the alien fleet, but they were taking damage. The cargo ship Steel Runner was leaking atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. The passenger liner New Hope had lost 2 of its engines. They needed every advantage they could get. "Do it," Jake ordered. The human fleet began transmitting on the Veltar command frequency, their signals overlapping and interfering with alien communications. On the Veltar flagship, General Zektar suddenly found himself unable to give orders to his fleet. His ships were fighting as individual units instead of a coordinated force. "General," his communications officer reported, "we have lost contact with the fleet. The humans are jamming our frequencies." Zektar stared at the tactical display. His ships were bigger and more powerful than the human vessels, but they were now fighting without coordination. The humans, meanwhile, seemed to be working together perfectly despite having no military organization. "How are they coordinating their attacks without military discipline?" he asked his tactical officer. "I do not know, General. But they appear to be more effective as a group than our ships are individually." The battle continued for 2 more hours. Human ships darted between the alien vessels like small fish attacking sharks. They used their knowledge of civilian equipment and improvised tactics to disable alien weapons and engines. The Veltar had superior firepower, but they were not prepared for an enemy that fought to protect rather than to conquer. As the sun set on the Vega system, the alien fleet began to retreat. Half of their ships were disabled, and they could no longer coordinate their attacks. General Zektar's flagship was the last to withdraw, its engines damaged and its weapons offline. The human fleet had won their first victory, but Jake knew the war was far from over. The aliens would be back with more ships and better preparation. But for now, the people of Kepler Station were safe, and the galaxy had learned something important about human nature. When humans fight to protect their own, they become more dangerous than any military force. 3 days after the first battle, the Veltar returned with reinforcements. General Zektar brought twice as many ships this time, including his massive flagship destroyer of worlds. The alien fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars with their hulls. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the enemy ships approach. The human fleet had grown too, with more civilian vessels arriving each day. Miners, traders, and even tourist ships had answered the call, but they were still outnumbered 3-1. "They mean to finish this," Jake said to his crew. "They're not going to give us another chance to embarrass them." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez checked her instruments. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that flagship. It has enough firepower to destroy a small planet." Jake nodded grimly. The aliens had learned from their first defeat. This time they would not underestimate human determination. On Kepler Station, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the alien fleet advance. Her people had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. Children were moved to the deepest parts of the station where they would be safest. Essential equipment was loaded onto transport ships. If the worst happened, they would try to evacuate as many people as possible. "Commander," her assistant reported, "we have confirmation that all non-essential personnel are ready for evacuation. The mining crews are setting charges on the main asteroid. If we lose the station, the aliens won't get anything useful from it." Lisa looked out at the human fleet positioning itself between the station and the approaching enemy. These brave people had risked everything to protect strangers. She would not let their sacrifice be meaningless. The second battle began at dawn. The Veltar flagship opened fire with weapons that could crack moons. The energy beam struck the passenger liner, New Hope cutting through its hull like paper. Captain Helen Santos and her crew of brave volunteers died instantly, along with 50 passengers who had refused to evacuate. Jake felt the loss like a physical blow. Helen had been a good captain and a better person. She had died protecting people she had never met before this crisis began. "All ships, attack pattern Gamma," Jake ordered. "We make them pay for every life they take." The human fleet charged forward, their civilian ships moving with deadly purpose. But the alien reinforcements were too strong. One by one, human vessels were destroyed by the superior firepower of the Veltar warships. The cargo ship Steel Runner exploded when its improvised weapons overloaded. The research vessel Discovery was cut in half by enemy fire while Dr. Karen Miller was still working to jam alien communications. The medical ship Phoenix Dawn went down fighting, its crew using surgical lasers until the very end. Paul Carter's industrial ship Mountain Mover lasted longer than most. His crew used their heavy construction equipment to devastating effect, disabling 3 alien cruisers before enemy fire finally breached their hull. Paul himself stayed at his post, using the ship's plasma cutters to damage one more alien vessel. Before the Mountain Mover was destroyed, Jake watched his friends die one by one. These were not soldiers trained for war. They were ordinary people who had chosen to fight because humans were in danger. Each death made him more determined to make their sacrifice count. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, "we're down to 26 ships. The aliens still have over 60 vessels operational." Jake looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was being systematically destroyed. They had fought bravely, but courage alone was not enough against overwhelming odds. Soon there would be no one left to protect Kepler Station. "Begin evacuation of the station," Jake ordered. All remaining ships prepare to cover the retreat. Lieutenant Ryan Phillips, barely 23 years old, was piloting a small cargo shuttle between the station and the surviving human ships. His job was to ferry civilians to safety while the fleet held off the alien attack. He had already made 6 trips, each time dodging enemy fire to save another group of colonists. "This is Phillips," he reported over the communication channel. "I have 37 people aboard, including 12 children. Requesting escort to the transport ship." "Roger that, Phillips," Jake replied. "Danny Brooks will cover you." Danny's maintenance shuttle flew alongside the cargo shuttle, its small size allowing it to dart between enemy weapons. The 2 young pilots worked together to save as many people as possible from the doomed station. General Zektar watched the evacuation from his flagship. His tactical officer reported that the humans were removing their people from the station rather than continue fighting a hopeless battle. "They are finally showing sense," the tactical officer observed. "They know they cannot win." But Zektar was not satisfied. He had come here to teach the humans a lesson about challenging the Veltar Confederation. Allowing them to evacuate their people would make him look weak to his own forces. "Target the evacuation ships," he ordered. "Sir, those are civilian vessels carrying non-combatants. Our military code forbids attacking evacuation ships. The humans attacked us with civilian vessels. They made them military targets. Fire on the evacuation ships." Jake saw the alien flagship targeting the transport ship carrying evacuated colonists. The vessel was loaded with families from Kepler Station, including the children who had been born in space and called the station home. "They're targeting the civilians," he told his crew. "We can't let that happen." Jake made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He turned the horizon toward the alien flagship, pushing his ship's engines to their maximum output. The small exploration vessel accelerated directly toward the massive alien warship. "Captain, what are you doing?" Rodriguez asked. "Something that needs to be done," Jake replied. "Get to the escape pods." "That's an order. Sir, we're not leaving you." "You have to. Someone needs to tell this story. Someone needs to remember what happened here." Jake sealed the bridge and continued his suicide run toward the alien flagship. The horizon was tiny compared to the destroyer of worlds, but it was moving at incredible speed. When the 2 ships collided, the explosion damaged the flagship's main engines and disabled its primary weapons. Lieutenant Phillips took command of the evacuation operation as the human fleet's senior surviving officer. He coordinated the withdrawal of all remaining civilians from Kepler Station while the surviving ships provided cover. The evacuation succeeded, but at a terrible cost. Of the 47 ships that had come to defend Kepler Station, only 14 survived the battle. 37 human vessels were destroyed, and over 200 crew members lost their lives. But all 847 colonists from the station were saved as the transport ships carrying the evacuated colonists headed for safety. Several Veltar vessels broke formation. Their crews had watched human beings die to protect strangers, and something about that sacrifice had shaken them. For the first time in their military careers, they questioned whether their cause was just the Battle of Kepler Station was over, but its effects would be felt across the galaxy for generations to come. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Station, the galaxy was a different place. The story of the human fleet's sacrifice had spread from system to system, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees. Every species in known space had heard about the cargo ships and passenger liners that fought warships to protect strangers. Jake Morrison sat in a small office on Earth, looking out at the blue sky he had almost died defending. The doctors said it was a miracle he survived when the horizon collided with the alien flagship. His ship had been destroyed, but the escape pod had kept him alive long enough for rescue. Now he spent his days writing, trying to put into words what had happened at Kepler Station. The door to his office opened, and Commander Lisa Hayes walked in. She looked older than her years, carrying the weight of all the people who had died to save her station. But she also carried something else, the knowledge that humanity had shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. "How is the book coming?" Along? Lisa asked, sitting down across from Jake's desk. Slowly, Jake replied. How do you explain to people who weren't there what it felt like? How do you describe watching ordinary people become heroes? Lisa nodded. She understood the difficulty. The Battle of Kepler Station had become legendary, but legends often missed the human details that made the story real. Lieutenant Phillips is doing well in his new command, she reported. The kid who was flying cargo shuttles 6 months ago is now captain of his own ship. The Space Navy promoted him after what he did during the evacuation. Jake smiled. Ryan Phillips had shown remarkable courage and leadership during the darkest moments of the battle. He deserved every honor he had received. What about the Veltar? Jake asked. Lisa's expression grew serious. That's the interesting part. Their confederation is falling apart. General Zektar was captured by his own people and put on trial for war crimes. Apparently, attacking evacuation ships violated their own military code. The news did not surprise Jake. He had seen something in the alien general's eyes during their final confrontation. A flicker of doubt that suggested not all Veltar agreed with their government's aggressive policies. Several Veltar worlds have declared independence from the Confederation, Lisa continued. They're saying they want no part in wars against species that fight to protect their families. Some of them are even asking to establish trade relations. With human colonies? Jake leaned back in his chair. The battle had been won through sacrifice and determination. But the real victory was happening now, as other species recognized that humans fought for something worth respecting. Have you heard from the survivors? Jake asked. Most of them have settled on New Terra, the colony world we established for the Kepler Station refugees. They named their first city Haven in honor of the ships that died protecting them. Amy Rodriguez is running the medical center there. Paul Carter's family received the Medal of Valor for his sacrifice. Jake nodded. The people of Kepler Station had been scattered to the winds, but they had not been forgotten. The human colonies were taking care of their own, just as they always had. Danny Brooks knocked on the office door and entered. The young pilot who had flown his maintenance shuttle through the battle like a warrior now wore the uniform of the Colonial Defense Force. He carried a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. Captain Morrison, Danny said formally then, relaxed into a grin. The intelligence boys wanted you to see this. We've been monitoring alien communications across the galaxy. The Kepler Station story is having some interesting effects. Jake took the datapad and read the translated reports. Pirates who had been raiding human shipping lanes were now avoiding human space entirely. Several aggressive alien species had canceled planned attacks on human colonies. Even the powerful Zephyrian Empire, which had been considering military action against human expansion, had quietly withdrawn their forces from the border regions. They're afraid of us, Danny explained. Not because of our technology or our military strength. They're afraid because they know we'll come for our people. Every human in the galaxy is potentially part of a fleet that will fight to the death to protect them. Jake understood. The Battle of Kepler Station had established something more valuable than a military victory. It had created a reputation that protected human colonies better than any fleet of warships could. There's something else, Danny continued. We've been getting requests from other species to establish mutual defense treaties. They want to know if humans would help protect their colonies the way we protected Kepler Station. Lisa looked surprised. Other species want our protection? It makes sense, Jake said. Most alien civilizations fight for territory or resources. They don't understand the concept of protecting people just because they're people. But they recognize the value of having allies who will never abandon them. Jake returned to his writing. That evening, working by lamplight in his small apartment. The book was nearly finished, but he wanted to get the ending right. This was not just a war story or an adventure tale. It was a memoir about what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. He wrote about Captain Helen Santos, who had died protecting people she had never met. He wrote about Paul Carter, who had turned construction equipment into weapons of war. He wrote about Dr. Karen Miller, who had used her scientific knowledge to give the fleet an advantage. He wrote about Lieutenant Phillips, who had grown from a young cargo pilot into a leader during the evacuation. Most importantly, he wrote about the 847 people of Kepler Station who had been saved. They were teachers and miners, engineers and shopkeepers, parents and children who had chosen to build new lives among the stars. They represented everything humans were fighting to protect. The final chapter of Jake's memoir became the most quoted piece of writing in human space. In it, he explained why humans had fought so desperately for a mining station full of strangers. Other species fight for many reasons. They fight for territory, for resources, for glory, for revenge, but humans fight for something simpler and more powerful. We fight for the right of our people to exist freely among the stars. We fight because we know that every human life has value, whether they live on Earth or on the farthest frontier colony. We fight because when humans are in danger, other humans come to help. This is not negotiable. This is not subject to debate. This is who we are. Years later, when alien fleets approached human colonies, they would remember the lesson of Kepler Station. They would remember the cargo ships that fought warships, the civilians who became warriors, and the captain who died to save evacuation ships. They would remember that humans protect their own, no matter the cost. No matter the odds, the memory of that sacrifice kept the peace more effectively than any weapon ever could. In a galaxy full of predators, humanity had established itself as the species that would never abandon its people. That reputation became their greatest defense and their most powerful weapon. The Battle of Kepler Station was over, but its echo would continue across the galaxy for generations to come.